All right, so first of all, congratulations. It is a new year, it is exciting. And I think one thing that we often forget to do is to celebrate what has already happened and what our students have gone through. And so I just want to congratulate each of you and congratulate your students for making it through a semester. Again, whether it was your first semester or you're a few years into this, every semester is one to be celebrated. We know what kind of a commitment it is to attend a university, to attend VCU. It is a lot. And so you should be happy about that and be celebrating that with your student that you've made it and that they've made it through another semester. And so what I'm going to briefly touch on today, and it will be brief. If we have some live participants who have questions at the end, I'll cover those. But I'm going to talk through some challenges, opportunities, coaching tips, and resources. And I'm going to try to approach things from both the student and the family member perspective, because I know that you all are probably both experiencing some challenges and opportunities as we enter into a new semester. And so let's talk about what our students might be going through at this time. So in general, I think in the spring semester, there is kind of less excitement around coming to school. You know, in the fall, especially if your student was a first-year student or a transfer student in the fall, they may have come to orientation, they may have done all of these welcome activities that were really exciting, and there's just a lot going on. And it kind of seems like second semester is not so much of a celebration. There's not as much fanfare going on. And so just in general, that can sort of make students feel just a little lackluster about coming back to another semester. There are lots of things happening on campus, but at this point in time, it does require a little bit more effort on the part of the student to find some of those things. So you may find that that's a challenge, that they're just not as jazzed and excited as they were last semester. Some students may have some mixed feelings about either their experience so far at VCU, their experience as a college student or in a college classroom, or maybe even socially, some mixed feelings. And it is very possible that many of you, while spending time with them over break, got to hear some of that in the form of their venting or seeing them kind of stressed out. And that's completely normal. That's a totally typical thing to happen with that first semester, or even with the start of a new fall semester, a new academic year for our older students or returning students, that there are often some mixed feelings that come along with kind of restarting things. Your students, those of you who do have younger students or students who are just beginning at VCU and are maybe just going into their second semester, your students may be experiencing something that we call imposter syndrome. And if you aren't familiar with imposter syndrome, it's this idea that a student is not, does not belong. They're not ready for college. Maybe they're not prepared enough to do the work. And it comes along with a lot of feelings of self-doubt. And so many students experience that. Again, it is very normal. We tend to see this a little bit higher in our first generation college students who maybe begin to think like, you know, I can't do this. My parents didn't do this, so I shouldn't have to do this. I'm not ready. I'm not equipped. And I think one way that we can approach that challenge from a family standpoint is giving them that confidence and that reassurance that there's a reason that they were admitted at VCU. It is not an easy institution to get admitted into. They have done the work. They have proven that they can do the work to be successful in college. And so now it's just about figuring out how to use the resources to be successful in a newer environment. So as they're going into different courses, some of your students, especially if they're upperclassmen or if they came in with a lot of academic credits, they may be beginning to experience some classes this semester that are going to be a little bit more difficult or challenging. As students get into upper level courses, there's typically more reading, more writing, and more time needs to be dedicated to study. And so that's something that you may kind of hear your students talking about, like, my classes this semester are so much harder, or even just looking at the syllabus that they receive from a professor, it might just kind of initially seem overwhelming. But again, reassuring them that they have done one semester already and maybe more if you have a returning student goes a long way. Some of our students may have a conduct record after their first semester. And so that may be something that is challenging them that they're working to overcome. Either they might have engaged in some behavior that received some type of an educational sanction. So maybe they had to do community service or attend a certain course or write a paper or something like that. Or they may even be returning after a suspension or being temporarily dismissed from the university. And so that can bring along with it a lot of challenges about how they feel about their reputation on campus and how other people might view them or feel about them. And so I think it's really important that, it's really important that we reassure our students that mistakes happen and they are normal and that is how we grow and that is how we learn. And that this new semester is an opportunity to wipe that record clean and to start over. So some students also may still be struggling to find their people or to find their place at the university. We see this mostly with students who have chosen not to get involved in their first semester. And many students do that for a variety of reasons. Maybe they had a little anxiety about meeting people or getting involved or committing to a student or organization or a club or a sport or something like that. Or maybe students just tried to do that. They might have looked for their place, but had a really hard time finding it. And so some of them might be bringing along into this next semester some apprehension about whether or not they're going to find their people or find their place. And so I always encourage students to get themselves out there, put themselves out there, try to get involved, and try to meet people, because staying isolated in their residence hall room is not going to help them with that. And then last but not least, another challenge that students might be facing as they're coming into the second semester, and that you may have heard about in over winter break, is this idea of potentially transferring to another institution. And what we often hear is either students wanting to transfer to a community college, maybe because they're a little uncomfortable with the academic rigor of a four-year university, or we might hear about them wanting to transfer to be closer to someone or something. So whether that's being closer to home, being closer to friends, like a friend who might be going to a different college or university that they're very close with. We hear a lot of students wanting to move closer to a significant other. And so transfer talk can often be a challenge. And there's this idea that the grass is greener on the other side at this other institution. And I think it's important that we are realistic with students that they're going to encounter challenges no matter where they are, whether that's at VCU, at their local community college back home, or at another four-year college or university where their best friend goes, that transferring in and of itself does add some additional stressors, but that also it is going to result in a similar experience that that they do have to transition again and go through some of that again. And so it's important to address that. We know for you, there are some concerns that you might be having as well. In addition to all these things your students may be feeling that you are probably feeling some of the effects of, you might have some concerns about their first semester, maybe how they did academically or how they did socially, and wondering how to best provide support in this second semester. And really, that's usually what I hear from families in the second semester is, I just want to help. I just want to know what to do. I don't know how to get them to find their place or become more comfortable with the level of academic rigor, or to get involved. And so we're going to chat a little bit about that as we dive a little bit more into this. Now, there are also some really great opportunities. So for your students, getting involved and finding their place is a great opportunity that lies ahead of them in this new semester. And maybe now that they have a semester under their belt and have figured out sort of how to manage their time and some of the academic expectations at a university, this will allow them the opportunity to get involved if they haven't already. And there are tons of student organizations, clubs, and sports that are recruiting members for the spring semester. This is also a great opportunity for your student to begin thinking about their health, their wellness, their well-being. And I think a lot of students, when they hear that, they may automatically default to thinking about fitness. And that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more holistically looking at their nutrition, their exercise, and their sleep. Those are kind of the big three. And then kind of wrapped into all of that is just their emotional, physical well-being, and thinking about their mental health. And so there are a lot of resources available to help them with these three, and I'm going to go over some of those in just a few minutes. But a new semester does provide an opportunity to kind of address those things and get on track, especially in the spring semester. We hear a lot about students making New Year's resolutions, and you all may have made some of those yourselves as adults in the working world. And so, this is an opportunity for them to begin thinking about taking a resolution, just this idea of doing something differently, and really turning it into a goal. And we're going to talk about goal setting too in just a moment. This is an opportunity to get back on track academically and to also explore new academic or career paths. Your student may have had the opportunity last semester or in semesters prior to begin exploring some academic options outside of just the general core curriculum. So they may have already begun taking some courses that are in their intended major. And those might have gone really well, or they may have taken some of those courses and decided, oh no, like this is not what I thought it was. I don't think that this is what I want to do. And so this new semester provides an opportunity for them to begin to explore. And I want to put a special plug in to remind all of you that this week, this first week back with classes, is add drop week, meaning that students can add courses to their schedule or remove courses from their schedule that they just don't feel are a good fit, or that they are not confident about, or that they just want to explore something new. And so encourage them to do that. Their schedule that they set last semester prior to beginning classes is not set in stone. They have an entire week to make adjustments to that, and may wish to do that after having some conversation with you over the break. So there's also some opportunities for you as family members who are supporting your student. One big opportunity, and this is kind of a tough one to talk about, but one big opportunity is for you to re-examine the expectations that you have of your student. Often in that very first semester especially, we set extremely high expectations for students that are very difficult for them to reach. And so it may be an opportunity, now that you've seen how your student performs in a college environment, to kind of re-examine and potentially readjust some of those expectations, so that you're setting realistic and achievable expectations for your student. And it's important that you revisit those. So many of our students come to us at the end of their first year, their first full year, and say, oh, my family wants me to transfer or just come back home or maybe take a gap year because they just aren't proud of how I'm doing, or they're just not confident that I'm up for this. And often what I find in debriefing those conversations with students is that they never at any point in time had a discussion with their families about their family's expectations of them. It just kind of got dumped on them at the end that you're not doing what we expected, and so you need to stop college for a little bit, or you need to come back closer to home. And so I find that it's really helpful for students, especially this particular generation, to have very clear expectations set out up front. And so I encourage you, if you haven't already had a conversation with your student, to begin having that conversation about what those expectations are, and not only kind of giving them your bullet point list of what you'd like to see them do, but how you as a partner in their success are there to help support them as they're trying to meet those expectations. Some other opportunities for you are an opportunity to connect with parents or family members, as well as campus resources. I'm going to share some of those with you, but I've seen many of you already very active in some of the various social media outlets that exist for families. I know in particular, the Class of 2023 Parents Facebook page is very active, and you all connect regularly and ask questions on that. And we're so happy that that is such a great outlet. And a big shout out to Tracy Bank, who is the chair of our VCU Family Council, who actually created that page and provided that initial opportunity for you all to begin connecting. I encourage you to continue using resources like that, as well as like our VCU Families Facebook page, where we put out a lot of announcements, so that you are aware of what's going on campus, and you are having the opportunity to connect with other families. One thing I will say about that, I talk to a lot of families on our family helpline who feel very isolated sometimes in the second semester. I think in the first semester, it feels like it's normal to get on social media, especially on Facebook, and potentially talk about the frustrations that you're having either with a university or with your student, and to vent and to get all of that stuff kind of out in the open. And it seems very normalized because everyone else is doing the same thing. But then second semester, I feel like often families feel like they should have it figured out by now. The students should have their act together, and they as family members should know what they're doing by now. And they might be more embarrassed to put some of those questions or concerns out there. And I just want to encourage you not to be embarrassed about that. I promise you, there are plenty of family members who are struggling with how to support their student in a new semester, whether it's their second, their fifth, or their 10th, whatever the case might be. And so, I really just want to encourage you to not feel embarrassed or ashamed about making that contact. And then another opportunity that I think exists for you is to really let your student begin taking the lead on contact. And that is hard. That is a hard thing to do. I know, especially in the first semester, it's natural for you to want to reach out to them and to make that initial contact. But as students are kind of beginning to emerge into adulthood and figure all of this out, I find that it's a really good idea to sort of let them be the ones to initiate contact. And that shows you kind of where they are. Are they reaching out every day? And is that maybe suggesting that they might have a little bit of an over dependence? And when I say reaching out every day, I don't mean reaching out just to say, "Hi, Mom, I love you," or "Hi, Dad, I was thinking about you today." I'm talking about reaching out daily because they are in need of something, something that typically they might be able to achieve on their own. And so try to begin letting them take the lead on that contact. And I know we're in a very text savvy generation, so I don't discourage you at all from sending your student a text to say, "Hey, just thinking about you, hope your week is going well," or "hope your day is going well." But letting them kind of initiate contact when it comes to problem solving. So here are my coaching tips, things that I think if your student has some of these things in line, are going to be really, really helpful as they begin to navigate kind of a new semester, as well as just this next phase of life as a young adult. And so first of all, we all know this as adults. Money is the root of all evil. It is the stressor that somehow just can take over our lives and make us feel more anxious than we would like to. And so one of the first tips I'm going to have for you to help with coaching your student is for them to have their finances in order. And when I'm talking about finances, there are a few things that students need to make sure they're doing. Making sure that they're taking care of their FAFSA. If they're filing their own taxes this year, making sure that they know how to do that, if that's something they're comfortable with and confident about. And then potentially, if they need to seek a part-time job to have a little extra spending money, or even to be able to have the money to pay their rent or other necessities, making sure that they are making active steps towards doing that, and creating a budget. Those are just kind of 4 check boxes that I would make sure to go over with your student. And having those things kind of out of the way might open the door for other things to be a little bit easier to navigate, so that stress of money and finances does not loom so heavy. One thing that I also talk with families a lot about, and students, is that many of your students may be taking out student loans in order to pay for college. And there is never a time that is too early to begin paying those loans back. Excuse me. And so, that might be a conversation to have with your student as well. If they are working a part-time job and maybe have some extra income coming in, it's good to go ahead and get a head start on paying some of those loans back. The next thing is being prepared academically, being organized, making sure they have their textbooks. Um, a lot of students wait to get textbooks. And I've been asked at orientation many times, when should students get their textbook? And I'll be honest, I recommend that they get them as soon as they have their syllabus or an email from the professor, or able to access on the Barnes and Noble VCU website what their books are. The great thing about buying through Barnes and Noble is if your student buys a book and then they determine that they're not going to be using that book in the course, they can return the book. If it's unwrapped, they can return that. And I believe in the first week as well, if they perhaps bought it and then the professor says, no, you don't need it, they can return that without a problem. Uh, but it's great to have those textbooks early on, just to make sure that if there is any assigned reading in the first week of classes, they have the books they need. Next, I suggest that all students use a calendar, all of them, a planner, a calendar, Google Calendar, whatever works for them. I do a lot of coaching with students and sit down with them to utilize Google Calendar. It's something that comes with their VCU email account. It's very easy to block off the times when they're in class or maybe working, any student organization meetings. And so generally in my coaching sessions with them, I'll have them go through and add all of that first. Like, what are the things that you absolutely have to do? The classes, your work, and any student involvement or organization times that are already blocked off. And then I'll say, okay, now go in and add to that calendar when your assignments and tests are taking place, so that they can see on a calendar on the overall day when those things are happening. And then I'll say, okay, third step, now that you've got that added in, let's go back and put in your planning time. When are you going to work on completing those assignments? And when are you going to study or prepare for those tests that you're taking? And I'll have them actually block in those study and test taking plan or test preparation times. And that's generally very helpful. This is a great time to talk to your student about making a plan for their wellness. We see in the first semester with students taking on a lot of new things, like a new environment, new friends, new stress, new courses, that sometimes their wellness takes a hit. Whether that's they might have potentially gained a few pounds or lost a few pounds, that put them one way or the other into an unhealthy category. This is an opportunity for them to kind of plan out some meals, to think about an exercise routine. And I say exercise not from a standpoint of wanting students to strive to be thin or to look a certain way, but exercise actually has a lot of positive mental health benefits. It releases a lot of good, feel-good chemicals in the brain, and it also helps students to have more focus. And so that exercise is really important, even if it's just taking a walk outside around campus and getting some fresh air. And their wellness plan also needs to include sleep. That is very often forgotten. And so talk to your student about how much they're sleeping and making sure that they're planning for sleep. This is a great opportunity for your student to change their environment. And what I mean by that is sometimes, students in their first semester, they may spend a lot of time in their room, which is not necessarily a bad thing if that room is conducive to their success as a student or their success, personally. But this is an opportunity to do a few things to maybe jazz up that space, make it a little bit more reflective of who they are, make it a little more organized and easy to navigate. And so I encourage you to talk to your student about the spaces that they occupy, whether it's, going to the library or staying in their room or whatever the case might be, that they're thinking about how those spaces are organized, what people are in those spaces that are either conducive or not conducive to their success as a student, and thinking about how they might organize or better rethink that environment. One coaching tip that I cannot suggest highly enough is to have your student keep a journal where they are celebrating the things that they are accomplishing. Often in second semester, when the work starts hitting, the classes start coming in, those assignments are rolling in, they're due, it's a lot going on, and it's very easily to forget how much they have done and how much they have accomplished. And so I have some of my students that I do one-on-one coaching with actually keep a journal where everything that is accomplished, and I mean everything, if they have completed an assignment, if they've done a test, if they have received membership in an honor organization or anything, that they just take a second to jot that down so that at the end of a month, or even sometimes at the end of a week even, they can look back and say, wow, I did that. Like, all this stuff that I'm doing now seems really, really hard and overwhelming. But looking back at this journal, look at everything that I've accomplished and everything that I was able to do. This one thing that's coming up that I think is such a big hurdle now doesn't seem so big because I'm looking back at this mountain of accomplishments and things that I have already achieved. So that's a big coaching tip that I would encourage you to have them do in a second semester. This is also a great time for your student to begin building their brand. And by that, I mean getting a resume in order or just beginning to create one. If they are looking at part-time jobs or internships coming up either this semester or next year, that's definitely something they'll want to have and be working on. But it's never too early to start working on a resume and just having some basic things outlined. It's a great time for them to begin thinking about how they present themselves on social media. You all have heard about this probably their whole lives, that employers and other various people who might be interested in your student for whatever reason are looking at their social media presence. And I would say that that's the case not only for jobs and internships and things like that, but even membership in some organizations on campus. And so really have them think about how they're putting themselves out there. There are a lot of ways in which they can keep promoting themselves privately, however it is that they choose to do that, but that their public image is very different. And, you know, of course, I'm never going to be the advocate that you have a private and a public sort of profile on any social media site, because I'm just all about kind of being your true, authentic self. But maybe thinking about what parts of that authentic self you put out into the world is a good thing to have a conversation about. Excuse me. And then the last thing with that is beginning to think about networking, and whether that's them talking and connecting with faculty and staff, or others at the university who might be beneficial to them as they're beginning to climb in their classification as a student. That networking is really, really important. For those of you who didn't get a chance to attend at orientation, Maggie Tolan, Dr. Maggie Tolan, who works in student success here at VCU, talks about the power of some of these networking experiences. So many students might think, oh, I'm going to do an internship, and maybe I'll have that same internship for several years while I'm at VCU. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But let's say your student does that one internship, and in that one internship, they have an opportunity to connect with 5 people, 5 professionals who are working in the field that they want to be in one day. If that is it, then when they graduate, those are their 5 networking people who are going to help to promote them as they're looking for jobs. Whereas if your student, let's say, chooses to do a different internship, 2 or 3 internships each semester, or sorry, each year, and then maybe they also join a student organization, and maybe they also do a little bit of research or spend some time with faculty outside of the classroom. This is just building their network of people who are there to promote them and shout their praises when it comes time to look for a job. So beginning to talk to your student about building a brand can never start too early. And the second semester is kind of when I see a lot of students beginning to want to do some of that. Okay, this next one's a little tricky. So it's time. You have successfully sent them off to college. They have managed at least one semester, if not more. And it is time for them to begin to start adulting. And what I mean by that is that there are some basic things that our students, I have found, do not know about themselves. Things like their social security number, their license plate number, their car identification information, who their health insurance provider is. These are important things that, as you know, as an adult, we're often asked to provide or need to be able to provide. And so I want to encourage you that if your student's in a place where they haven't started thinking about some of these things, and maybe having some of these things written down or in an easy place to find, that they begin doing that as we go into this second semester and beginning to take on more adult responsibilities. I talked a little bit about this earlier when I talked about getting prepared academically and also making a plan for wellness. But making a schedule is really, really important. I can't highly encourage that enough. But the reason I wanted to emphasize it again is because there were a couple of things that I didn't include. And those things are sleep and fun. Students have to schedule sleep. If they don't, it will be the first thing they sacrifice. And so encouraging your student to get on a regular sleep schedule, I can't suggest that highly enough. And they also need to schedule some time for fun. Many of your students may have come home with straight A's last semester or just really high academic grades. And that doesn't mean they didn't have fun, but for some of them, it does mean they didn't have fun. And that fun, that enjoyment of college and of meeting new people and experiencing things with people is really, really important, not only for networking purposes, but for their mental health and their social well-being. So encourage them to include some of those things in their schedule. I talk with my students a lot about creating a playlist for a new year. And when I say a playlist, I mean like something that they're listening to on their phone or when they're working out or even just walking from class to class or even studying. And I encourage them to create different playlists for motivation, inspiration, focus, and relaxation. Different things that they can call upon to kind of get them into a zone, and that kind of becomes something that they can build on for the year. And then in a new year, recreate a new one. It's just kind of a fun way to start a new year or a new semester. Another tip is to have them make sure that they know what the resources are. We have done so much at VCU to try to educate students on resources. Between RAM Ready, which were the online modules that they should have completed prior to coming to VCU, and then new student orientation, weeks of welcome. There are so many different ways in which we've tried to make sure students are educated about the resources that are on campus. If they're living on campus, their RA is also a really great resource who can point them in the right direction. So is their academic advisor. But what we find is that often students don't utilize the resources that are here when they're struggling. And so encourage them to use those resources. There's no shame and no stigma in doing so. And then last but not least, another coaching tip that I have for you to share with them is for them to develop SMART goals that directly contribute to their success, and to not only write those down, but to monitor their progress. And in case you aren't familiar with what SMART goals are, I'm going to just kind of give you a very brief little overview and a graphic. So SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals. So what this means is that the goals that our students are creating, and this is a great idea for you too, if you haven't done some goal setting in a while and want to think about where you're going with your career or your personal life or whatever, take some time and develop a few SMART goals. So a goal that is specific is direct. It is very detailed and it is meaningful. So on the left here, you can see an example. Instead of saying, I want to get healthier, which is very broad, say, I will exercise for at least 30 minutes each day and improve my resting heart rate. That is a very specific goal that is easy to determine whether or not you reached. Thinking about measurable goals should be quantifiable. They should be able to track their progress or the success. So instead of saying, as a student, I want to get involved, say, I will join one new organization by February. They can easily determine whether or not they've reached that once February arrives. An attainable goal is one that's realistic and that the student has tools or resources necessary to get it. So instead of saying, and I know this is a tough one, instead of saying, I want to get an A in every class, which could be attainable, it really could, but we want to make sure that it's phrased in a way that's realistic. Say, I will attend all of my classes and use resources if I am struggling. Because attending class and then using the resources will lead to the A. And so thinking about how to make that goal written in a way that's more attainable. A relevant goal means it aligns with your student's mission. And here it says company mission because SMART goals are often used in company goal setting. But a relevant goal should align with your student's mission to ultimately graduate and get a job. That's kind of the end goal of college: graduate, get a job, become a little more well-rounded, all of these things. And so that's what those goals should look like. So instead of saying, your student just saying, I want to travel, I want to go somewhere new, saying, I'm going to research studying abroad so that I can enhance my marketability as a global citizen when I graduate. That's a great way of reframing that goal. And then last but not least, a SMART goal is time-based. It has a deadline. Goals that do not have deadlines are often never reached. And so instead of saying, I want to get a part-time job, say, I will apply for 3 part-time jobs before the end of January. So that just kind of makes it a little bit more realistic, a little bit more attainable, if it's kind of all spelled out. Some resources for your student, if they're not already using these, please encourage them to utilize their academic advisor, their faculty's office hours. There are several mentor programs at the university if they feel like they might be in need of a peer mentor, someone who maybe has gone through this experience before as a student. If they're struggling and would like a peer, there are so many different mentor programs offered by several different offices. And if you have questions about those, I would be happy to talk with you more offline about that, and I'll give you my contact information in a moment to do that. There are academic success resources such as our Writing Center, Campus Learning Center, and Transfer Center. If you need a brief refresher on what these are, the Writing Center will work with your student at any point in the writing process. So whether it's they just got, the assignment and they can't figure out how to get started on writing a paper, or they're halfway through and are a little stuck or just want to know if they're on the right track, or if it's the very end and they want to make sure their paper is coherent and has good flow, good grammar, makes sense, and addresses the problem, the Writing Center can help them. But it's important that students make appointments early for that and don't wait until the last minute. Campus Learning Center provides supplemental instruction where students who have been successful in that course previously take the course again along with your student and then facilitate study sessions outside of class to help them. And this is that supplemental instruction is offered particularly for classes that have high rates of students receiving D's or F's or withdrawing from those. So it's a great option. Campus Learning Center also provides tutoring, both drop-in tutoring as well as scheduled appointment tutoring. And they also offer academic coaching, which is really, really great, personalized, tailored coaching for academic success. And then our Transfer Center is there to provide support for our transfer students. And I think it's a great resource if your student has transferred and especially is having a hard time with kind of finding their place or figuring out how to navigate a new university or college setting. Transfer centers are a really great resource. The Well, which is our office that's dedicated to health promotion and well-being, they are really, really great resource for students who might be struggling with things like sleep, substance abuse, stress management. Those are awesome areas that the Well can help them with. The Well has also developed this new concept called the Resiliency Lab, where students can go in and get some biofeedback about their resilience and what they need to be working on. It's often what I would call kind of a precursor to going to counseling services. And so definitely encourage your student to use those biofeedback sessions. They're really, really helpful. But then, of course, if your student is maybe struggling a little more and might be in need of a counselor, we do have university counseling services here to assist them with that. And to also recommend or refer them to providers who can provide more long-term care in the community. Many of our students come back after first semester and they say, you know what, my nutrition is out of whack. Either I've gained weight and I don't like that, or I've lost weight and I don't like that, or I'm just eating absolute garbage. I'm not eating on a regular schedule. I'm not eating healthy, well-balanced meals. I don't know how to do that here on campus, or maybe I have specific dietary needs and I'm having a really difficult time navigating how to meet those needs on campus. We do have a nutritionist with VCU Dine who's housed in Schaefer and would be very happy to help your students with figuring out a really solid plan for eating while they're on campus or even not on campus. So I highly encourage you to have them check that out. We have personal trainers at Cary Street Gym if your student maybe is setting some more intense physical goals for the upcoming semester when it comes to their fitness or exercise routines. And so highly encourage them to check that out. There is a cost for personal training, but it is incredibly reasonable. And so I would definitely encourage that if that's a priority for your student. And also just want to remind you too that the gym can be a great place if your student is having a hard time finding people to connect with or hang out with. There are group fitness classes. Some of them are very low risk, and some of them are very high risk, meaning they're intense. They're very difficult or challenging courses. But many of those classes, those group fitness classes or exercise classes, are just fun ways to burn off some energy, get their heart rate up, and are very low risk and an opportunity to connect with other people. And then last but not least, I know I suggested that this is a great time for your student to begin building their brand or thinking about internships and part-time jobs. Career Services is a great resource to help them with all of that, with tailoring their resume, preparing for interviews. If they haven't checked out those services yet, they absolutely should. And then here's some resources for you, and I'll leave you with this page so that you have it. Want to make sure that you realize that you can utilize our office, new student and family programs, at any point in time. We do have staff that are here ready to help and serve you however we can, to answer your questions, to chat with you through some of the struggles you might be having or your student might be having. We also have some resources available on our website, which is just nsfp.vcu.edu. We have the Family Helpline, which is staffed Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And that number is 804-828-7322. And I know I emphasized this if I saw you at orientation, that helpline is for any reason at all. If you're calling because you're stressed and you're concerned about your student, that is fine. We will help you work through that. If you are calling because you are coming to visit for the weekend and you just want to know a really great restaurant to take your student to, we got you covered. We are the foodie office on campus, and we can tell you all the great places to eat in Richmond. So there's never a reason too serious or too silly to call that number. We're here to help you and to serve you. I mentioned earlier the VCU Facebook pages that exist for families. The official one of the university is called VCU Families, but there are also specific class family pages that have been created by various family members in years past. So just a quick search in Facebook will bring you to those. We have our VCU Families blog, where we're putting out pretty much daily or at least multiple times a week stories of what's going on around campus or on campus that might be relevant for your student or for you as a family member. And then last but not least, if you need us, if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via email at ramfamilies@vcu.edu. That's our official office email address, and we're happy to answer any questions you have. If you need to speak with me specifically, just say something in there that I'd like to talk with Lenan. You can also call me on the family helpline. The person who answers most of our messages through the family email account, her name is Rachel Smith. She is our parent and family communications